Enviva was founded in 2004 to help major utilities improve the environmental profile of energy generation. Enviva wood pellets directly replace coal in industrial-scale power plants, allowing plants to continue to operate while decreasing their dependence on fossil fuels and reducing their carbon footprint. By reliably providing customers throughout the world with an alternative to coal, Enviva is part of a cleaner, greener, low-carbon energy future. Wood fiber is one of the world's greatest natural resources. The U.S. is home to more than 750 million acres of forest area. These forest volumes have increased since 1953. These tremendous working forests, which have underpinned the forest products industry for hundreds of years, are also home to Enviva, the world's largest supplier of wood pellet fuel to utilities.
Much of the world has come to the conclusion that there are better ways to generate electricity, that we can do so with fewer emissions and with a smaller carbon footprint. We agree. Our business employs hundreds of people and creates several thousand indirect jobs. We bring hundreds of millions of dollars of direct investment and annual economic activity, which promotes the revitalization of rural economies and sustainable economic development. We help electricity generators and their power plants improve the emissions profile of energy generation by supplying them with wood pellet fuel made from wood fiber sourced right here in the Southeast United States. Our wood comes from forests where landowners grow trees to cut them, sell them, and regrow them. We know that healthy markets for wood create thriving forests. It also prevents the worst outcome of all for forests, and that's land use change.
A mixed stand of trees produces many different types of wood that go to different markets and have different values. When a forest owner decides to harvest a tract, it's done primarily with higher value timber in mind. The most valuable timber of all is wood that can be used for telephone poles. Saw timber, used to make lumber for construction, furniture, and other solid wood products, is next. Then come ply logs and chip and saw, which are used for other construction materials. Below that is pulpwood, tops, limbs, and small crooked or diseased wood fiber that have traditionally been used by the pulp and paper industry. Finally, there is the low-grade wood fiber that is left over, such as small tops, limbs, branches, and other wood residues. Enviva only takes wood from the last two types, pulpwood and low-grade wood fiber.
So those small trees, what was it, maybe 6-9 inches around?
Yep.
Those can't be made into any form of saw timber?
No, those won't be made into saw timber. They're generally too small.
So this tract is going to get replanted this winter. How long is it going to take until it becomes a forest again?
This is a forest. This is just a young forest. It'll have trees on it this spring. You'll start seeing growth immediately out here. Let me take you to a stand that was harvested 4 years ago, and we'll see. So this is a piece of property cut about 4 years ago. Hardwood stand that was harvested in 2009. As you can see here, it's already started growing back. Some of these trees are upwards of 20 feet tall. And you see a good stand of trees, very typical for what was here before. Natural regrowth from the hardwoods and pine mechanically planted back.
So mechanically planted pine, got natural growth of the hardwoods in 4 years, 20 feet.
That's correct.
Pretty remarkable, the level of intensity of growth here.
This is very common for forests in the Southeast. It's the nature of the southern forest.
Sunlight, ground, water.
That's all it takes.
Let me be clear. This means that over time, there is more, not less than when we came. It also means that our operations can't have negative impacts on the special ecosystems that make this region's forests so unique. These 2 points are at the heart of our procurement policy.
The fiber sourcing team here at Enviva is made up of resource professionals who have over 350 years of experience in the industry. These professionals live and work in our communities. Many of them are landowners themselves. They'll work with our suppliers to coordinate delivery of material into our facilities. All of the suppliers delivering into Enviva are trained loggers. It's part of our requirements. They also comply with best management practices.
Of the 751 million acres of forest area in the U.S., more than 200 million of these acres are in the U.S. South, where forest inventories have increased by 94% since 1953. 87% of these southern forests are privately owned and managed. Enviva sources from private forest owners, most of whom own small parcels of land and manage these forests for timber production, recreation, and wildlife. One of Enviva's suppliers is Vance Wright.
I'm sixth generation on the farm here. That's where I was born and raised, right here on the farm. My family's owned the land since the mid-1830s. Forest, I mean, it's just like a part of the land. You have open land and timber land. Everyone has a little bit of both. We have mostly timber land nowadays. Every time we cut a tract, we will reforest it. We have started chipping in the last few months. There is a little bit of economic value, but as much as anything, it's a tool to be able to help reforest the land a little easier than it was. I'm here to make sure this land is there for the future. And I want to be able to continue doing this year after year after year, decade after decade, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, that this industry is still viable and working strong.
Enviva's procurement team also works with commercial loggers like Chip Capps, who harvest principally for sawmills, but delivers the byproducts of the harvest to companies like Enviva.
Most of the timber here goes for building products, framing lumber, 2x4s, 2x6s. Some of it goes for peelers to the plywood mills, some to the telephone poles, pulp and paper. We lost a huge hardwood pulp mill here, I guess it's 4 years ago now, and a lot of, probably 50% of what we shipped to Enviva used to go to that mill, that particular mill. Before we were able to ship this wood to Enviva, whether it's in roundwood form or chip form, we would leave it just to rot. If you leave all this waste on the ground, you can't replant the trees, the next crop of trees. And that's by being able to use that and chip it and ship it to be used for pellets, it's not in the way and it doesn't have to be burned.
Enviva sources its wood fiber from working forests, sawmills, and other wood industry manufacturers. We are proud that our procurement activities provide essential markets for low-value wood and help keep forests forested. Enviva's raw materials consist of low-grade wood fiber that is unsuitable for or rejected by the sawmilling and lumber industries because of small size, defects, disease, or pest infestation. Tree tops and tree limbs, which are parts of the trees that can't be processed into lumber. The weak or defective trees that are harvested to promote the growth of higher value timber to reduce competition for water, nutrients, and sunlight. This process is known as commercial thinning. And finally, mill residuals such as chips, sawdust, and other wood industry byproducts. Enviva doesn't take saw timber. The wood we take does not meet specifications for high-value wood product uses.
What is a harvest cycle? On a typical pine stand, first, young seedlings are planted. Through natural mortality, some of these trees will die off. 10 to 12 years after planting, the first thinning takes place. This removes the diseased and inferior trees from the stand. This process is repeated again between years 15 and 20. This thinning of trees promotes a healthier stand of trees. After 25 to 30 years of tree growth, the final harvest of the remaining trees takes place. And the entire process begins again with planting of new seedlings. This is what is called a harvest cycle.
So here's some examples of our inwoods chips. This material is generally coming from commercial thinnings or even some pre-commercial thinnings. You can see the limbs and the needles and the leaves. This material is harvested and it helps the landowner improve the productivity of the trees left behind. Here's an example of a poplar tree that's rotten. It's about 16 inches in diameter. This material was delivered to us so it wouldn't make saw logs. The logs that left the forest to be harvested for and utilized for lumber and furniture were sawn, and this is the sawdust from that process. We don't waste anything. Even the bark from the waste material is used to fuel our furnace to dry the wood for our pellets.
You have a lot of forest companies that have undergone certification for sustainable forest management. In the southeast, there's a really large land base of well-managed forests. Many of the industrial-sized forests have achieved certification to sustainable certification programs. The challenge really becomes verifying the fiber is indeed coming from well-managed forests when those forests are not certified. We use third-party certification programs like FSC and SFI fiber sourcing to help us reduce the risk that we're getting fiber from poorly managed forests.
Enviva works with all of its suppliers to promote responsible forest management on all lands, not just those that are already certified.
There's a lot that goes into verifying where the fiber comes from, and that's one of the reasons why we've set up a track and trace program to go further than the certification, and we can actually track where each specific load of fiber has come from, and we look at important attributes of that area for things like high conservation values, reforestation, the use and effectiveness of best management practices. So in order to be able to sell our pellets, we have to provide assurance that the production of the pellet produces less carbon emissions than its fossil fuel comparison. So in order to do that, we closely track and verify and quantify our entire greenhouse gas footprint from forest to end use.
Enviva's final product is shipped in large cargo vessels that can hold as much as 50,000 metric tons. Shipping in bulk quantities improves the environmental profile of deliveries to customers. Switching to biomass from coal can reduce carbon emissions by between 74 and 90%. Biomass also emits significantly lower levels of nitrogen, mercury, lead, arsenic, and other pollutants that are harmful to the environment.
We founded Enviva almost a decade ago to help major utilities improve the environmental profile of energy generation. Wood fiber, one of the world's greatest natural resources, grows right here in the Southeast U.S. We're proud to be a part of protecting our nation's tremendous legacy of forest stewardship. We are a key part of a cleaner, greener, low-carbon energy future.